We'll give it a couple more minutes because people are still coming in here, and then we can dive into everything. I'm excited for this one. Personally, been using you guys and Triggerfy like just for our own outbound for I guess quite some time before we even released the integration with you guys or released it publicly with you guys. Um, and be getting some awesome results. So I'm kind of keen to dive into like what we've been doing and the use cases between the two tools, which is exciting.
We also do. We also use Trigify for a while now. And so, yeah, we'll also share that.
Nice, nice. While we're waiting, I think we've got a bit of a mix, I guess, between your users and obviously ours. It would be maybe good for you to set the scene on you and
Of course.
yeah, the growth machine as well, and kind of we can go from there with it all.
Okay, thanks. So, I'm Brice, founder and CEO of La Grosse Machine. We are, you can see Hugo saying LGM, LGM. La Grosse Machine is also called LGM. So if you see that, that's us. What we do is basically sales automation. We help sales and GTM teams engage with their prospects on LinkedIn, by email, on Twitter. It mostly works in the US. In Europe, Twitter, X, is not that useful, but in the US it works. And also manual tasks, calls, such things. What differentiates us is that it's so completely modular. You can create exactly what you want. I will show you later, but that's really something that adapts to your own sales workflow.
Nice, nice. And because like with the growth machine, I guess like the real cool thing is it's like totally omnichannel, right? Like it's multiple different channels that you could use inside of there. Out of curiosity, what channel do people tend to use the most within your tool?
Not that surprisingly, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
If we take just the figures, the stats in terms of reply rates, um, the average reply rate when you use multi-channel, so you said we are multi-channel, when you use multi-channel, the average reply rate is 20%, more than 20%. That's really high compared to email only. But if we split that, uh, only 2 to 5%, 2 to 5 points out of the 20 are coming from the email. Everything else comes from LinkedIn. So almost 15% coming replies coming from LinkedIn and the rest coming from the emails.
Really?
LinkedIn, of course.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting, interesting. Okay, cool. Well, let's dive into I guess the part that I'm really excited about, and that's I guess like using kind of let's before we go into like trigger fires, like using signal data as part of like the outreach. And what I've noticed is those clients that are using kind of signal-based data, uh, combining it with like some form of like LinkedIn outreach are like and just crushing it like so much more than kind of going over email and everything.
Mhm.
And I don't know what you've experienced or like your thought process on like leveraging signal data with like LinkedIn outreach. Like what are the best practices? Like how have you seen people using it? And I'm also really kind of curious, and we'll kind of dive into the tools in a little bit more detail in a sec, but I'm also really curious to get your thought process on like how a sequence should look using uh, signal data, right? Because I guess the concept is you reach out when something happens, and then like how do you continue to follow that up with like multi-touch points?
Okay. Um, so there are tons of different intents or signals that you can use. Using Trigify, you can use lots of follow a lot of signals. What I see the most effective among our users are those the usual suspect. I would say so monitoring people visiting your website. So RB2B like it works really nicely. In this specific use case, so someone visits your website, you will
Yep.
have to verify that is in your CRM. So Clay is perfect for that. So I'd say B2B move to Clay. check your CRM, and then move those that are both in your ICP and not in your CRM into Lagos Machine to engage on LinkedIn. And to engage with these people, usually you should not mention the signal itself. You should just consider that they're interested in your product, pitch them exactly the same way you would for any kind of any other type of prospect. So I personally use just a sentence saying, okay, I Max, I'm CEO at Lagos Machine. We help GTM and sales teams do blah 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 blah. I never mentioned the signal itself, the visit in my profile.
Yeah.
It could be weird, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is weird. Like it comes across creepy, I guess. Like it's like
Yeah, a little bit,
the
yeah.
yeah. And do you like I'm curious, like, are there any other like I remember when I first spoke to you, right? Like you were talking about like how you use the growth machine to like warm up your profile and teams profiles and things like that. Outside of like the obvious, which is outbound campaigns, like how are like are
Mm.
there any other clever ways of just using like, and I don't really know the answer to this, but I'm just curious, like, are there any other cool use cases that I've perhaps not thought about other than like using it for like an outbound purpose, like perhaps
In
around
fact,
content or anything like that, I guess. Like,
in fact, personally, I don't do outbound. I do only inbound. Okay, so or at least warm leads. So leads coming that already know me. Confirm you speaking language. Yeah. Okay, sorry. So people who visit my website, okay, I just mentioned it. Those who comment my post, the post of my team's post, exactly what you do with Trigify. But something that's more maybe different than what you hear regularly is we engage with everybody signing up on La Grosse Machine if they match our ICP. So among, I don't know, 100 lead signing up, we have approximately 25 that exactly match our ICP. On those 25, we will engage on LinkedIn with them, not only by email. Usually you have, I don't know, MailChimp, Customer IO, whatever you want, and you engage with all your leads with a nurturing flow that only engage by email.
yeah,
But doing so, you talk to only maybe 40% who opens the email. If I engage on LinkedIn, one, it's more personal.
yeah,
Two, I reach out to 100% of those leads, and because it's more personal, I get a lot more replies. And
yeah.
so our sales team basically only engage signups on LinkedIn, and it works pretty well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a really cool strategy. I hadn't thought about that one actually, using it for that new user kind of sign up and flow, I guess, which is cool. And especially if you chuck it into Clay prior to going into the growth machine, like you're pretty endless on what you could do. And before we like, I want to go into a flow because there's some really cool use cases. But one question that I did have for you, which was because you can do both email and LinkedIn through the growth machine, do you tend to start with either or first? Like, is there like a rule of
I
thumb, start with LinkedIn, go to email, or vice versa?
um, Depends on the audience. Um, some people, if they're digital, uh, start with LinkedIn and finish with email. Why? Because when you start with LinkedIn, you will probably start with something with a contact request, and the contact requests approximately gets you 35-40% of acceptance. That's the average. You can get more. Just a tip: if you add a like just before the contact request, so one like, you wait one day, one contact request, you get 38% more acceptance. So just one tips: add a like before. But
Interesting.
still, uh, over 100 people I will send a contact request, only 40, let's say, will accept me. And so if you start with this, I will contact by email only the 60 remainings. And so because I don't have the same kind of limits by email, 60, well, will be easy to contact.
Mm. Okay, that's cool. And it's funny that you say that, right? So like we have a client that's using you guys and us, and um, a lot of people think about like signal data as like, hey, it's really good just to get reply rates, and obviously like close deals and everything like that, which obviously like it is. But what has been really interesting is they've gone from like you said, they've got, I think the average was like a 20% connection rate that they had.
Okay.
Um, no, this is the client. They had a 20% connection rate. And then they've started using, they've been pushing Triggerfy data into the Growth Machine. And their connection rate is now, I think it's like 63% or something like that, purely because like, I think it's like one, obviously there's relevancy there, yes, but also because these people are very like active on LinkedIn. And what a lot of people like forget is like you go build like a list in Clay or Apollo or something like that, and then you chuck it through to like the growth machine once you build that kind of initial list out. But they might not be that like active on LinkedIn, and then you're kind of wasting your connection requests because you also only have so many connection requests you can do, within a safe limit. So it's precious, and you don't want to be wasting on people that you just don't get, like you don't get a response rate as a result.
We one of the key thing in what you're saying is the segmentation basically. So you can segment based on your ICP. Everybody does that, or at least should do that.
Yeah.
Uh, but you can also filter based on the activity, the LinkedIn activity. But if you look at if you enrich people on Clay, let's say, and you get the number of not connection requests, the number of followers, the number of connections. If someone has less than 500, you can probably think that guess that is not really active on LinkedIn.
Mm.
It could be a good way uh, to move someone to start discussing with someone on by email if he has less than 500, and on LinkedIn if he has more.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. Okay, cool. I want to go through like a flow that so we've got a client that's using us. They are currently getting a 1 in 4 positive reply rate through using Triggerfy and the Growth Machine. So that is 25%, I think, if my maths is correct. Uh, Positive reply rate. So that's like meetings booked from the leads that they reach out to. Okay.
Wow.
And I think what would be cool is to kind of do like for everyone who's on the call, like an end-to-end flow. So I'll handle the Triggerfy part, and then you can kind of show, I guess, the elements of what's going on in the growth machine and how they're actioning it. But I'll go over like the message that they're using and how they're prospecting these leads in the first place. I'm also going to switch. My camera is being very weird, so we're going to go onto my normal laptop camera here. There we go. Look at the quality difference. It's crazy. It's a lot worse. But it was glitching in and out. So cool. So for those that you don't know, Triggerfy is basically a social signal platform, and like it's like such a perfect pairing with Le Growth Machine because it's effectively like it could be like the rocket fuel that helps the engine being the growth machine, right? And we can create, especially if we start using things like Clay, like in the middle, we can create what we call like evergreen campaigns. So that means once you set up the automation in the growth machine and you set up the workflow in Triggerfy, this will then just run forever. And so I always like use the example. I track a lot of thought leaders, and one in particular, there's a chap called Adam Robinson, which I'm sure a lot of us know. He runs the R B2B company. Whenever he posts, I book 5 meetings, right? And
Mhm.
so Triggerfy, for those of you that don't know, is a social signal platform. Effectively, we can monitor any interaction or action happening across social media. So any post that you do, we can capture any like that you do, we can capture any comment that you do, we can capture. But you can start to get a little bit more nuanced. Like, well, are they liking content that contains XYZ? How many times are they doing that? Are they surging in that? Is this a short-term behavioral pattern, or is this long-term? Is there like a repeated history of this going on? All of which you can then start to then derive like what we call like signals out of that data. But for the purpose of this, I am going to showcase the particular flow that they're running, which is basically monitoring thought leaders. Okay. And so the concept behind monitoring thought leaders is you would go and find someone, and thought leader could just be another term for an influencer, by the way, but like it's someone who's very influential in your space, right? So whether it's sales and marketing, compliance, financial, whatever, you can go and find people through using Triggerfy and find people that talk a lot about what your product solves and the pain that your product solves, and then filter for like the influence that they have, and then start tracking that in here. So like one of the individuals, for example, I won't do what the actual client is doing, but I'll give an example. So of what I do is I monitor someone like Chris Walker. And Chris Walker, for those of you that don't know, he's a big marketing person and talks a lot about ABM strategies. And so the idea being is like, hey, you want to go and find people that are interacting with a particular thought leader that talks about pains that your product would potentially solve. What I do and what this client basically is doing is they are then pushing this data automatically through to Clay. Now they use Clay because we're going to do some fun stuff, but you don't have to use Clay. Like we can just go ahead and chuck it straight into like the Growth Machin from here as well, right? Which is really cool. So just literally select it and ping it through. But if you want to use Clay, it just allows you to get a little bit more complex and a little bit more sophisticated with the campaigns that you're running. And the particular thing that they're doing, and the particular thing that I do as well, that is interesting is when we send this data through to Clay, we are giving you kind of all of this information, right? So like everything that we're looking at here, we're giving it to you. But the key parts are we're giving you the actual post that the person has interacted with. And we'll also tell you how often that they interact with. So what a lot of people do is they can say, okay, well, like I want to find someone that is what we call like a repeat engager. So they're liking this individual stuff like three or more times, and then send that data through to Clay, or you can just send it through whenever you want. But what we're then going to do inside of Clay is we're going to use an AI system, right? And bear with me here because it gets a little bit technical, that reads the particular post and then tags that post to see if it fits within like the subject area that that particular in like that your company kind of solves. So for me, like if I was to do it for Triggerfy, I basically would read this and say, hey, does this post talk about anything to do with prospecting, automation, intent data, founder-led content, and so on? It will then say yes or no, where it then, if it is yes, it will then basically work out what that post is about. And then we then chuck it through to the growth machine right here. And here's where the fun starts. So it's like, okay, we know that they're relevant, they're engaging with a thought leader, and that thought leader is talking about something that is topical for what my product solves. I then have different campaigns inside of the growth machine. So I typically have like 4 campaigns set up inside of the growth machine. Those 4 campaigns are for 4 different subject areas. And so like one might be like personal branding, one might be like thought leadership, sorry, not personal branding, one might be about like intent data. And the reason that they're 4 different campaigns is I got 4 different lead magnets waiting for them in that campaign. So what then happens is Clay routes them to the different campaign, but it would be like, hi Sam, I can see that you're really interested in intent data. I've pulled together a bit of a document about how you can leverage intent data and increase your response rates by 20%. Do you want me to share this with you?
Mm.
And what happens is that will go to different campaigns. So for example, like Heather here, it might go to one about personal branding, where the content is about personal branding. But most importantly, it's the lead magnet, it's the link that changes because I've got something waiting for them there. Um, but the end part, which is I think the part that does really well, is you say like, "Hey Sam, can see that you're really interested in 10 data. I've done a document, blah blah. Do you want me to send that to you? P.S. Go and check out Chris Walker. He talks a lot of good content on this stuff." Um, and they replied back to me being like, "No way! Like I follow Chris Walker. Like I like his stuff." And it's like, "Oh yeah, no wonder. Like you play innocent to not knowing." But it's like that, that age old like, if we both say like, "Hey, have you ever watched that film?" And you're like, "Yeah, I love that film." It's like bang, like we're instantly connected. You're kind of playing into that kind of like psychological like game essentially. And from there, it's like over to the growth machine, right? But that's like the general strategy, and everything is is automated and it's working from like an evergreen perspective, right? So once I set this up and we're monitoring a lot of different people, it's then automatically pushing this through to the growth machine where I basically just sit on the growth machine and wait. Yes, we've got Clay in the middle that's kind of like orchestrating a little bit and stuff like that. But you basically then just sit on the growth machine and respond to people. And it's like warm inbound as a result.
May I have two questions?
Go over
Uh,
it.
maybe, maybe I see that there are questions in the chat, but two questions. One, is that automated? I mean, what's automated in the process? What's not? Let's start.
Everything is automated, right? Like as if you know if, I'm big into automation. If
Yeah,
you
I know.
follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that. But the only manual part is like the initial like setup in the growth machine, working out the structure of like the campaigns. It's the setup in Clay and it's the setup in Triggerfy, right? Which is natural. Like you've got to build the automation. Once you have this, everything is then going to work. And I'll show you what I mean because like if we look at this with Clay, you basically have just like the option to auto push this data through into Clay. So it's literally just sending like via a webhook as and when new engagement comes in. So as and when someone posts, it then will send that data through into Clay. And then obviously in Clay, it's just like it's an automation in itself, right? Which then basically qualifies or not qualifies and then routes them to the particular campaign inside of the growth machine.
That was my point. As you mentioned, we are connected, integrated, so you can push leads directly from Tegify to Lagos Machine, but that's a very basic integration where you check boxes and push leads directly to Lagos Machine, but it's still manual. To automate everything, you have to go through Clay. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
You have to go through Clay, and the Clay integration gives you a ton more flexibility. You mentioned that you wanted to classify the post and say, okay, this post talks about that, this one talks about that, and based on this, send it to this campaign, not that campaign. I would also add something here. I'm quite confident you do that. You should also make sure that the person you're engaging with is not already in your CRM to avoid engaging with them. Um,
Yes.
you
Yes.
probably did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there is that. Yeah, I have that. Yes, I have that step in. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's obviously and well, it depends. Like, so yes, if it's like an outbound campaign, but I also do it where, if you post a lot on LinkedIn, right, and like content's your thing, I do also just reach out to everyone, and I have a campaign that's like not focused on kind of converting people. It's more like, for example, if you like
Engaging.
my content, yeah, it's like, hey, like, thanks for liking my stuff. Out of curiosity, what made you engage? Like, I put a lot of effort into it. Appreciate you engaging nonetheless.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just incredible, like the response that you get from that. And yes, naturally, that leads to, um, new clients. But if I hit current clients with that particular flow, it makes just it's only a positive really because you're just creating a conversation with them as well. So depends on the campaign. I do vet if it's in HubSpot or not, and if we've reached out to them or not, and then obviously send it through to you guys.
Yeah. Definitely, you said something very interesting. I don't know if people in the audience is familiar to Outbound, but one of the key idea is that you're not here to close someone as easily, as fast as possible, but to create conversations. And that's along the conversation, you will find the reason why the person in front needs your product.
Yeah,
If you try to close too quickly, you won't.
yeah.
That's as easy as this.
And I also ran like the other day, right? So like I mentioned about like the connection like thing, like how can we increase like let's not even like look at our apply rates from this perspective, but like how can we just increase connection ratios? And like what a lot of people tend to do is they go to like Sales Navigator and they like search people and they put like posted on LinkedIn. Like that's like one of the like the cool things that people do. But the challenge with that is like again, like is there relevancy there? Right? Like it's so hard to know. And so one of the things that I've been testing out recently is just a pure campaign just based on like a connection basis. And I will like search for like anyone, for example, I don't know if people tend to do with the space, but like anyone who's engaging with products or content that's relevant for me. So like obviously I want to reach out to people that are engaging with content around the growth machine because there's an integration between us. It's like it's important. They'll see the content that I post and they'll naturally come in via funnel. So what I do here is like I'm just using it as a very light signal. And so I'm finding anyone that's engaging with the growth machine. And we can say like in the last 30 days where they've engaged with it like three or more times. And then I just export this list and upload this into the growth machine. So I don't go through Clay. I'm not doing anything fancy. Not doing anything fancy here. Like it's just like a basic campaign that is like just a connection campaign that kind of ticks away in the background essentially.
Yeah.
But you get such a high conversion ratio because of that relevancy.
I would add some another example here in your use case in this topic. Can you
Yeah.
leave the screen you were
Yeah, yeah,
sharing?
yeah.
Um, so if we talk about outbound, that's a nice way to do outbound. In fact, you're not completely cold because we have an integration, so it's more or less a little bit warm, I'd say. But if we say, okay, not using Lagos machine, but say um, cold outreach or outreach, just outreach. If you use outreach and target people who engage with those posts at least, I don't know, 3 times, um, you you can identify not only people who could be your future prospect, your future users, but
Yeah.
also creators. I don't know if that's in the topic or in another area of
Yeah,
Trigify.
that's the thought leaders.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We can find people talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, we use that to identify the creators that we should reach out to. Um, People repeatedly talking about topics that we consider relevant for our audience are contacted using those tough leaders that you show with
Yeah.
your map. It
Yeah.
works really
That's
well.
it's funny, like, because so I've been in like the signal, and we'll get around to answering some of these questions now, but like I've been in the signal game for a long time. Like I worked for another company prior to starting Triggerfy, which was a signal-based company, and then prior to that was a social listening company where we again used to do signals there. Um, and I've never seen anything convert as well as pairing a system such as yours for like LinkedIn outreach, right? And I am now like specifically talking about the LinkedIn part. You get really
Mhm.
good results on email, yes, you do, but like it just doesn't compare. Like the results are just through the roof via the LinkedIn outreach and social signals, right? Because I feel like as you're meeting people where they are, and like the concept behind a social signal for everyone is, if you look at social media, whether you love it or hate it, it's the one place that people are themselves. The keyboard warriors on there, and they're kind of like who they would want to be typically, right? Whether they like that or not. And it's no one is forcing someone to like or comment on something. And so if they're doing it multiple times over a certain kind of date range or a frequency, and if they're surging, there is definite and clear interest in that subject area. And so then when you go and connect with them and then reach out to them through the growth machine, that's where you then start to have like these campaigns that just absolutely just crush it.
Gotcha.
And I think the beauty about it is like one of the things that I think like everyone can get nervous with the LinkedIn automation is like, okay, is my account safe? And
Absolutely.
it's only never not if you like smash it and go too high. And the beauty about this is you don't need a lot of leads to get the results that you would have needed a lot of leads to previously, right? So like before you might have needed to reach out to 500 people or so. Now you can reach out to like 50 to 100 and get the same results.
One example. If you want 100 meetings, I can share with if someone wants this, I can share the details with you. If you want 100 meetings a month, you need to contact 30,000 people by email, in average. If you want the same amount of meetings and use multi-channel, you need to contact 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just because you get more replies. It's also because exactly what you say, Max, because they're more engaged on social networks, they're more engaged on topics. And so the number of people replying positively will also be higher than using emails.
Yeah. Interesting.
So with one identity, one LinkedIn ID, you can get the equivalent of 30 inboxes if you do rotating inboxes.
Yeah.
So, well, that's a good way to
That is a
explain
great way
why
to put it.
multi-channel works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So we got a couple of questions in here. I'm going to go through them. So we're using a multi-channel tool and seeing LinkedIn versus email 4-to-1 reply rates, similar to what you're talking about. What are some tactical ideas to make the recipient remember the company messaging them on email is the same founder messaging them on LinkedIn? Oh, okay. So like how can you kind of join the two
yeah.
average methods?
There's one very basic thing, use the same photo. If you use, I don't know if that's present. If you're using Google or Outlook, you can set a photo, use the same as the one you have on LinkedIn, exactly the same. That's very basic, but it works. And if you can, try to use a photo with a background, something that makes it make it different than other photos. That will do the work. I mean, that's really easy, very basic, but it works.
Yeah, nice. Would you ever like put an image in the like the outreach itself, like, or would you ever
I
keep
don't,
the copy like the same?
sorry, can you repeat this question?
So would you ever put like a photo in the LinkedIn message, and then the photo in the email, or like equivalent, like keep the copy the exact same on LinkedIn versus the
No,
copy?
you usually don't use the same copy in LinkedIn and email, um, because well, I'm sure you know that, but on LinkedIn, you're more in a chat. In the LinkedIn inbox, it's a chat. So
Yeah.
you send one short sentence, one other short sentence, and basically you send, well, two or three main IDs. You don't sign. You never say max at the end. If you do, you're a bot. That's for sure. Because your head is just in your picture, it's just written above the chat.
Mm,
On email, you have to be concise, exhaustive. You only send one email. And so you do everything, you say everything in one block.
yeah.
So that's definitely not the same copy. You have to consider LinkedIn as a chat. And if you consider this like this, you will send shorter message, but multiple message, basically.
Interesting. Yeah. And on that quickly, how many follow-ups would you do if they don't reply? Is there like a magic rule of thumb?
There's no magic rules, but there are stats. And what we see is that the reply rate uh, increase with the follow-ups. That's everybody knows that you need to send follow-ups because you get more replies from the second, the third message than the first. So it will increase with the third, the third, yeah, the fourth, and past the fourth, so fifth, five, six, seven, and more, you will get a little increase, but not like it's really small increase, very, very small, at least on LinkedIn, and not especially positive replies. So I'd say four is the ideal.
Interesting. Okay. Um, and then we had what would be the most optimized messaging copy? LinkedIn has limits, no links, images, etc. Does it have limits? I mean, I send links and
It has limits, especially on the contact request.
yeah,
Uh,
well, yeah, but not inside of the actual messages,
yeah,
right?
I think Prashant mentions that in terms of limits in the copy.
Okay.
Um, so first, if I consider the contact request, again, two stats that will enlighten us. If you send a contact request without a message, you will get higher rates, higher acceptance rate.
Yeah.
But, and that's important, but you will get less replies after that. Than if you send a message in your contact request, you'll get less acceptance, but more replies. That's quite well understandable. If you're upfront, you say why you want to reach out. People accepting you will be more likely to engage with you. That's it. So if you want to engage with people for a specific campaign, add a message and be very frank about your goal. If you don't, if you want to increase your network with that kind of people. Don't add anything to the contact request. You will get more people accepting you, so more people seeing your posts, and then you can continue the social warming that you do with LinkedIn posting.
Hmm.
And considering the links, the image that you can or cannot add in the message, images, you can't. Yes, you can't add images. In fact, I think you can, but not in La Grosse Machine. We don't allow you to send images.
No.
The reason why we don't is that we believe that if we send the same image more often, very often, LinkedIn can see that, and so we don't want to raise an alert in some way.
Yeah.
So we don't recommend that. And honestly, I don't know if people in the audience use image in their email, but that's not a good sign neither. That's not a good practice. So we don't want to, we prefer to avoid that.
No. And links in the first email as well is not the best for deliverability. So you want to check out
Absolutely.
the second one. Yeah.
Even so, some people like to send images with a fancy, I don't know, text added to the image to make it more personal, but it's not personal. Everybody knows that it's
A
fake.
gimmick, yeah. That's been done now. That was quite like
2022.
yeah, 2022. Yeah, like
Mm.
that when it first came out. Oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
But okay, cool. Then we got what is the best intent signal identified amongst your clients? Which one do you use the most? So um it's an interesting one. It's not necessarily which signal, it's more like which playbook people are using. And it's the play like the playbook that I just described is the one that is working really well. Like a lot of people think for social signals, you have to be posting yourself to get and reap the rewards, when in actual fact, that's just not like the case. If anything, it works better to do it on like thought leaders. If anything, yes, competitors is very good as well and tracking competitors. But to be honest, I think the thought leader one works really, really nicely because it positions you as kind of like an industry expert, and the little play that you can do around PS go follow this person, it just works really, really well from like a copy standpoint. And it's like not being used at all, apart from people who are using Triggerfy. And we're only new. We don't have thousands and thousands of users. So go use it before it becomes overused, and they have to think of a new kind of a new workflow that I think would work really well. But the thought tracking a thought leader and doing that kind of lead magnet playbook is very, very, very powerful. Naturally activating your own engagement works really nicely. You can come out a little bit softer, but I would say the most popular used one is the thought leader one at the moment. But I'm curious. I'd love to see for everyone who's on, perhaps it's not using you guys, like a little kind of showcase of the way that you would kind of best structure a campaign and how you would think about using the growth machine when it comes to like signal data specifically as well.
Okay, of course. Give me a second. I'll share my screen.
Yeah, all good. All good.
Can you grant me? Oh, yeah, I can.
I think I've done it, yeah.
Tick.
And Alison, we will be sharing the recording. It will go around in an email, I think, and it will go up on YouTube as well over the coming days, probably tomorrow, I'd imagine.
So here we are, well, creating a new campaign. The question is, how would you engage with the people on Lagos Machine from intent data, right?
Yeah.
As you said earlier, Max, you will use, and I also recommend that you will use Clay in the middle to craft a unique message that's tailored to the user profile and the content that he engaged with. And so you will probably generate the message and push it to Lagos Machine, and we will do the engagement part. What I would say is that, well, if I take your use case, okay, the one that we are engaging the source of engagement is LinkedIn and in the post, I would start with adding a relation, the person as a relation. And because the source is the like, I would immediately start with liking a post, the last post of the person. This will increase my chance of getting accepted here. And then I will move on and say, okay, if after a certain period they accept me, I will engage with them on LinkedIn and say, okay, I so you can add your variables. And probably I would probably say something the message that you generated from Clay. This would come as a custom attributes probably. You would push it in this. What?
I
I don't
realized
know.
I realized I'm muted. I use the custom variable. Like, so I
Yeah.
basically actually, and I don't know whether not a lot of people do this because they get a little bit nervous, but like I have AI generate the entire message
Yeah.
for me.
I think, in fact, 1 year ago, I wouldn't have recommended this because the AI writing was quite creepy. But yeah, and now it's more than enough. And so it depends if you want to add just the icebreaker or the complete message. But if you want the complete message, well, you just add this, and it will send the exact message that you've been generating in Clay. What I like to do is follow up a few days after, and especially with someone that I have a reason that I know that this campaign is dedicated to people who engage with, I don't know, Adam Robinson, as you said. I would send a voice message. This voice message will give you approximately 2 times more reply than a regular message. What we do is that we activate the AI stuff, AI voice message, and say, okay, hello first name will be generated using your own voice, and then the rest of the message will be you that recorded the rest. So every message will be personalized with this for the person, and I would just say something like following up on you engaging on Adam's post. I've seen his last post, blah, blah, talk about generally about Adam. And right after that, maybe in the message, say something about I've written a book, a guide, as you said. And right after that, send a message. You see here, there's no delay. The message will explain why I sent in this message here, just the link to the guide. So if you look at your LinkedIn inbox, you will only see a message and the link. And because of FOMO, people tend to listen to the message because they don't know why you just send the link, and it will increase also the number of reply you get and the number of clicks in your link. And then I would probably treat the negative branch if people did not accept me and send basically emails to
Love
them
that.
and follow-ups on this.
Nice.
That's probably what I would do.
This is exactly this. Funny enough, this is exactly how I have it. Apart from I don't do the like on the post.
Apart from this,
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's just like I feel like my connection rate is so like
in,
it's
in,
like it's so good. Like I just haven't added it. Yeah.
in fact, you have an excellent acceptance rate also because it's you.
Yeah.
So honestly, try this.
Yeah.
For those who don't know you, it will increase your acceptance rate. I can tell you.
Yeah. I like the voice message concept.
Yeah, the voice message is amazing. It works
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah. I imagine. There, I can show something actually if I'm going to show something that makes this flow even more nerdy. So I was
Let's go.
yeah, it's really nerdy for everyone who wants to bear with me on this flow here. We're going to go a little bit off piste, but um, it's everything that we've discussed, right? So it's the thought leader, it's reaching out based on engaging with certain topics, it's pushing them through to the growth machine. And we're using Clay in the middle to do everything that we've discussed. But I mentioned that I typically send them to one of four campaigns because that's where one of four lead magnets wait, where there's that unique link URL which you put in that section there. I've been developing something recently that I kind of presented yesterday at the Clay event for the first time, which is effectively it's an agent. And so this is quite off piece for both our products, but I think it's fun to share because I've started using it already, and oh my gosh, the response rates are wild. Um, so like basically, I'll go over a very high level and not get too sophisticated, too like nerdy on this. But what's
We are
basically
losing people. You're
yeah.
showing me Nathan. Nathan.
It's
We're losing
literally
people.
we had like a couple of people drop straight away as soon as I went on to NA10. But this like flow is creating custom lead magnets um for people. Okay. So previously, my strategy and the strategy that I was telling everyone was, hey, go and create like you use Clay because you only kind of do like four campaigns because that's where your four lead magnets wait because you've already written those four lead magnets, right? Because the time consuming way of doing this process, you've got to write these bloody lead magnets and make sure that they're valuable for people and they care about them because they will then reply back and saying, yes, I want to reach out to I want to read what you have to say. So what I basically did, and you've probably all seen deep research get launched with OpenAI recently. I basically built that, but not spending 200 quid to do it. Um, and what we're doing here is, as Triggerfy prospects the lead, it sends it through to a clay table. The clay table then basically checks this to make sure that they're an ICP fit, but then basically will then research that company and work out why has that person from that company with that job title engaged with that post? What was the potential reasons? And from those reasons, can we create a subject or a topic area that would be worth digging into? So for example, let's say it was a go-to-market post. It might be like, okay, how does like a growth engineer like how do they approach 2025? Um thinking about like the new ways of leveraging particular tech, right? That could be like what the AI spits out. And so then it comes into this flow here because we can't do this inside of Clay because Clay doesn't really have like agents to the point that it's going to do this. And so it takes the topic, which is like Clay has generated that research topic. And then we have an agent that basically creates like a query, right? And the query is it takes the particular topic area and then we'll start to then spit out like different like examples and say like, okay, hey, if the question is what is B2B data, it will then give like four variations on how it could ask that subject area. Long and short of it is it's going to then research those subject areas. It's going to plan the project. It then goes through to a team of, I wonder if I can show you an example. It goes through to like a team of like six research agents. Here we go. This will give you some data. So like different questions, right? It then goes through, you can see here, to a team of nine different research agents, which then start to basically build the chapters. Those then chapters get through to the editor, which composes it really nicely before it then goes through to create a Google document. That Google document it then gets uploaded, it then gets a share drive link where then basically it then creates this kind of drive link, which I can then share, and that then gets sent back to a Clay table, right? And then that link then gets uploaded as a custom variable inside of the Growth Machine, where you have something like this waiting. Everything's like citation, all of that like fun stuff. And the concept really with this, which I think is awesome, is like it's creating a custom lead magnet designed specifically for the individual based on what they've liked and what they care about without you lifting a finger inside of the growth machine, inside of Clay, inside of Triggerfy, like all done for you, which is cool. You're a mute.
I'm also a big fan of Nathan, but it's probably a little bit technical. And to I know why you do that, and I see your face smiling. I have the same kind of feeling when I finish my flow, innate one flow. But for those in the audience, I would say test this manually and create this automation if this works manually first. Because what Max doesn't say is that it took him probably quite a lot of time to do this,
Yeah, it took me
right?
a while to build. What I am going to do for everyone on this call though is we'll share that template. So you don't have to spend the
Really?
time. Yeah, we'll share that template. So you don't have to spend the time trying to build something like that in an A10. I'll share that so you can upload it into an A10 and kind of go for it yourself. And
Thanks.
so, you can start to create the flow between Triggerfy, Clay, N8N, and the Growth Machine to run the world's most complex workflow, which does crush it, by the way. But you can definitely start with simpler ones, which also just kind of cream it off the top. But yeah, I think it's kind of just like a bit more of like where are these things going and how like what I hope that that does is like unlocks the creativity when you think, okay, how can you blend like a multi-channel outreach with social data and what can you kind of fill in between? Like how creative can you get with those campaigns?
In fact, that's also true with your workflow you just showed. What we're trying to do and what people in the GTM teams or growth teams, whatever the name, is to understand what works by processing every steps and try to understand how to, well, you cut a process from A to Z into micro pieces, and then you automate one piece at a time. La Growth Machine will help you automate the engagement part. Trigify will automate the identification part, the segmentation, and Clay is basically uh, doing the part in the middle, orchestrating everything. N8N is the next level, to be honest. I don't know the exact level of people looking at us, but it's really consider this the next level, I'd say.
Yeah, it gives you a lot of flexibility, that's for sure.
Mm.
And I guess we're kind of getting close to ending call here. One of the questions that I did have for you just around like general outreach and the strategy there. Let's say I was like a marketing director or I was in the marketing team. Uh, how would you advise people set up the omni-channel these days? Do you see it changing in 2025? So typically, obviously, it was always done at a sales, like more seats, more bums on seats, the more like users, the more accounts connected, more emails connected. That was like the traditional way. And then Clay's kind of come along, I feel, and kind of this new role of like growth engineer has been born. And now there's like a new way of thinking, which is like, well, hey, why don't you have one person and they kind of like distribute the leads to everyone? But how does that then work with like using something like the Growth Machine? Are you recommending senior people connect their accounts on LinkedIn because they have a better conversion ratio and those leads can be then dispersed? Or I guess my question is, what profiles should you connect and who should you prioritize?
Well, you should probably match um, the lead, the seniority of the lead with the seniority of the person engaging with them.